Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you who don't know, or for those of you who weren't there was a brief period of time in the 90s when certain video games had a particular feel to them, particularly games on the PlayStation. But they were games that kind of had a style that was very influenced by metal, and it was influenced by Image Comics, and these games usually had wacky, demented characters. The best example I can think of is Twisted Metal 2 and Rogue Trip. Both of those were made by the same teams. But there were other games out there that had these kinds of elements and similarities and styles and feelings. And today I'm going to review one of those games, and that game is Loaded for the PlayStation. It's utter horse crap, but let's enjoy discussing it. Shall we? Shall we do that this evening? I think I'm ready. Are you ready? Let's do this. Come on, let's go. Cue the title. So here's the cover. See that text right there? This is what I mean by it's kind of influenced by like Image Comics. That looks like a character from an Image Comics, but it's also a demented clown. So it's also very much like metal, you know? Because demented clowns are very 90s, you know? And then there's that font, Loaded, that looks like the font from the comic book, the Pit, that Image used to put out. And then if you kind of like look at this whole thing in and of itself, there's a very 90s thing going on here. Like, this is bad computer game art, more or less. It's just wrong. It's just wrong. But this is the cover. Look. Body bag not included. Ho ho, that makes me want to play this game so hardcore. So here are the wacky and demented characters. You've got Captain Hands, who is a pirate, and he's got big hands. And then you got Bonka, who's a bouncer who shoots giant twin rockets. And then you have this baby character. Look at how demented and wacky that is. And then you have the requisite female character, and then there's your mom, and then there's the mascot character known as Fwank, because that's demented, and of course he's a demented clown. She's very metal, it's very video games, and it's very, very 90s right there. This is all the 90s right here. All the 90s you'll ever need. So at one point in time, if you wanted to know the story of a video game, you would have to read the manual. And then in the 90s, there was this awkward period of time when story was being filtered into games in such a way that you wouldn't need to read the manual. But Loaded was one of those transitional games where they still ended up using the manual to tell the story. So when you play the game, there's no actual story in the game. So let's take a moment to read a little bit of the story from the manual. You are in jail. Not just any jail, though. This is the jailer's jail. Situated on the most inescapable and inhospitable barren balls of rock anywhere in the galaxy, planet Rolf, R-A-U-L-F. Long ago, the powers that be built an enormous jail that could contain even the most dangerous and desperate criminals in the galaxy, individuals who would do the most despicable things at the drop of a hat, people who do not value any form of life which does not have their name, vital statistics, and fingerprints, where applicable. Something. It's a prison, and you're going to try to escape, and that's the story. But if this story isn't enough story for the game Loaded for you, then what you can do is you can read the timeless American classic as written by Garth Ennis. A small piece of advertisement, Loaded, comic, Garth Ennis. Let's read a small bit of this, shall we? Here is an excerpt from this comic book. Terry cautiously left his cell for the first time in 10 long years. The scene that greeted him was, to say the least, kind of different. In the middle of the corpse-strewn, blood-splattered passageway, Captain Hands was pinning a guard to the floor while Fwank the Nutter shoved a frag grenade up his rectum. Truly, the epitome of story for the Loaded game franchise thing that they were trying to do. Truly amazing. Gameplay-wise, it's a top-down shooter very similar to Smash TV. The only problem is that the controls suck. They're serviceable, but crappy.
The D-pad moves you. One button shoots, one button runs, one button uses your special bomb attack. One button also flips your HUD around so that you can see your map. The HUD itself is horrible. The health bar, the ammo, and the number of bombs you have are really, really small and hard to see. It could have been bigger. The main problem with the HUD, it flips over for the map, totally hiding vital information for you to see, like your health bar. And you're going to want to keep an eye on your health bar all the time because it's really easy to die in this game. The basic gameplay is this: run through a series of bland mazes, killing large hordes of bland enemies to collect bland keys or other bland items to open bland doors to continue until you find the bland exit. It's a lot like Doom, only it's not as cool or as innovative or as violent or as metal or as awesome or as fun or as scary or as anything else that Doom is. And speaking of metal, the music in this game sucks. It's just bland techno stuff that I could easily fall asleep to. And it just loops endlessly, forever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever. After a while, you can just feel this game's blandness slowly chipping away at your sanity, just making you want to go out and drive an ice cream truck, picking up small children and then cutting them into tiny pieces and putting them into the ice cream and then serving them to other children until eventually those children gain those weird ravenous powers from that movie Ravenous. And this is so boring. I'm coming up with better plots than this game. Bland is the best word to describe the game. The music is bland, the level design is bland, and the gameplay is bland. The gameplay is very bland. You'll spend several hours doing the same bland thing over and over and over and over again. This game is so bland that it could be considered sensory deprivation. Before long, I'm simply going to be a consciousness in a mediocre and filthy bedroom. The enemies in the game are very bland but plentiful. They have a tendency to swarm and to kill you quickly. You have a bomb attack that clears the screen of enemies, but the enemies will still swarm. The only interesting bomb attack comes from Flank. He has a swarm of killer teddy bears, which go outward and violently murder everything around them into giant exploding things of blood and stuff. And in all honesty, having a swarm of killer teddy bears would be pretty cool. I kind of wish I had that power, because if I had that power, I would unleash my swarm of deadly teddy bears in a violent stream upon my enemies. Violence and cuteness. That's what it would be called. It's my violent and cuteness attack. Really, there isn't much to say about the game. It's really repetitive, and unless you're drunk, it gets old really fast. And with that being said, I'm going to end this review, because what else can you say about such a boring, bland piece of shit? Good night, everybody.
Thanks for watching. Hey, if you like this video, please subscribe. And if you do subscribe, please click the bell for notifications. If you would like to help me make other cool things, please give to my Patreon, which you can find under Would You Kindly Productions. And if you like horror and other horror things, please check out my other channel, Dreams of Strange Cities. Links in the description.
So let's read the back. What does the back say? Take a psychotic persona of one of 6 chronically pissed off homicidal mutants, aka the demented and wacky characters, and blast out of brutal planet Rolf so you can slash and splatter your way across a lawless and unforgiving 3D morphing galaxy. That sounds so exciting. Doesn't that sound exciting? That is so exciting. Radical terrain morphing effects turn the laws of physics upside down. I'm going to tell you right now, that is 100% untrue. There's no physics in this game that make anything upside down at all.
This game is so dull, it could be considered sensory deprivation. Like, if I continue to play this, before long, I'm just going to be a conscious... This game is so dull that it could be considered sensory deprivation. Before long, I'm just going to be a mediocre consciousness in a mediocre bedroom, surrounded in a mediocre life. With that being said, I'm going to stop playing now, because I want to go out and have a life. Anyway, good night, everybody. And with that being said, I'm going to stop playing this, and I'm going to go outside, and I'm going to have a life. Good night, everybody. And with that being said, I'm going to stop playing this now. I'm just going to go out and have a life.